Thanks very much, Andrew. So can everybody see my slides? Yep. So I'm Ian Shepherd, as you heard. I'm a mastering engineer, DVD author, Blu-ray author. I run a website called Production Advice, aimed to help people get the best out of their music. And I founded something called Dynamic Range Day to raise awareness of the issue of the loudness wars, this feature of the music industry these days where levels are being pushed onto CD and into MP3 files higher and higher and higher in the under the mistaken impression that will make them stand out. That's not true, but the motivation is there for people. And this evening I want to talk to you about a plugin I've developed with meter plugs called Perception. And the idea is that it enables you to find the loudness sweet spot for your music. The perfect balance of dynamics and loudness as music is pushed higher and higher and higher up against the digital brick wall ceiling of 0 dB full scale. There are inevitably compromises. You either get distortion or it gets squashed and it starts to lose life and interest. And probably the quickest and easiest way to demonstrate that to you is to show it to you. So, my laptop died. Well, it didn't die, but it has a fault. So, in the spirit of Music Tech Fest, I am doing this in a DAW I don't really know. But what we have here, let's imagine this is a song that I want to master. Perception is aimed mainly at mastering engineers. In this version, we do have lots of plans to make it more suitable for mixing at a future date. I'll start off by just playing you a little bit of this song. This is the raw mix as supplied by the band. Skip forward to the loud section. And what I've done is I've set up, this is not a proper mastering session, but I've added some processing to that track, the kind of thing you might use in mastering. So it has a little bit of EQ, the level gets lifted, there is some gentle multiband compression, and there's a limiter on it. And once you've switched those on, it sounds like this. Just turn that off again. I don't know how much you can hear out there, but to me, the mastered version sounds better, but there's an instant problem, which is it's louder than the unmastered version. And the fascinating thing about loudness is if I played you two versions of exactly the same song, and one of them was turned down by as little as half a dB or a decibel, most people, when listening to those two versions, would choose the louder one as sounding better. That's the result of a psychoacoustic effect happens in our brain. It's nothing to do with the actual music itself. It's called the Fletcher Munson effect, or there's a thing called the equal loudness curves. Basically, it's the reason amplifiers used to have a loudness button for listening late at night. As you turn music down, we hear less bass and treble. We perceive less bass and treble. As you turn it up, we hear more. Nobody knows exactly why that is, but it could be an evolutionary response. Maybe the saber-toothed tiger that's over there is less important than the one that's just behind us, so our brain makes sounds that are close to us more interesting. Whatever the reason, just turning music up will make it sound better until you run out of headroom, which is the problem in digital because you have this 0 dB full-scale limit. So, as a mastering engineer, I want to know, has the processing I've added to that song genuinely made it sound better, or is it just louder? And in the past, I mean, there are various ways of figuring that out, but what I would have had to do would be to copy the song, paste in another copy of it. There's no effects on this track. I have effects over here on the first song at the top, but none on the second. So there's a difference in loudness, and I would have to turn the mastered song down. If I turn the quieter one up, it's going to distort almost certainly. So let's guess that something like 4 dBs might work, and let's try that. And I'll switch over to the unmastered version. Back again. That's a fairer comparison. I still feel that the mastered version is a little bit louder. That's the unmastered version. We're listening at a similar loudness. That's probably okay, and I'm happy. I still think that the mastered version sounds better. I don't feel like I've done any major damage. But that's quite a long-winded process, especially if I actually decide, well, no, I want to tweak something in the original settings. So I go back and change them. That changes the apparent loudness of the song, because loudness changes the way we think it sounds, and the way we think it sounds changes how loud we think it is. So then I have to tweak the levels again, and then actually if I then want to compare them back against each other, suddenly it's a very long-winded process, and it's a process that requires a certain amount of skill. There's a learning curve there, and it's a primary skill that a mastering engineer has to learn. This is the challenge that Perception has been developed to help with. So I'm going to show you how to do the same process using Perception. I have to reset that to 0 dB. That's close enough. So Perception is actually two plugins. The first one is called Perception Source, and we add it at the beginning of the processing chain. So there it is. It doesn't do anything. It just listens. And I'm going to drag that up to the top of the chain. So let's check that. That's happening prior to all the mastering processing. So that's listening to the raw, unmastered file. At the end of the processing chain, usually in the master output bus, I'm going to insert the perception controller, which is where all the fun happens. And I'm going to put that prior to the metering, just so you can see the effect that it has on the meters that I have on screen. So here's the interface. I hope you guys can see that. I'm going to play the music. The source is going to listen to the unmastered version and measure the loudness. The controller is going to listen to the mastered version and measure the loudness of that. Once it's calculated it, you'll see the balance button on Perception light up, at which point, when I click that, it will balance the levels. It will balance the loudness, and the level will drop. It's user configurable, but it's set up to a default which is similar to what iTunes Radio uses, which is obviously one of the major online discovery sources for music. So let's just show you that. You can see the numbers in red there. That's the difference in level, the difference in loudness that Perception has measured. It's saying 5 dBs, so a little bit more than I chose by ear. Now I've balanced them. I'm just going to turn it up a little bit more. And now I can bypass all of that mastering processing and listen to the loudness matched version of the source. So I didn't have to do any of that copying, pasting, switching things off, doing it by ear. Perception does it automatically. You might have heard there's a little skip in there which is distracting, and that can get quite large if there is a lot of latency in the processing chain that's being used. So I'm going to synchronize the sources. Perception will figure out the timing differences and solve them for you. It mutes temporarily while it does that. And now I can do a perfect, balanced comparison of the before and the after. Again, I'm not sure how much you can hear of the difference there out in front. But again, I'm happy with the choices I've made, but the real power of Perception comes in when I think, well, what would that sound like if I pushed it harder, if I pushed the level up further and used more processing? So I can store that current setting in a snapshot, and I can choose another snapshot, and I can dial in. I mean, I'll do something fairly extreme to hopefully enable you to hear it. I'll set a 6 dB level boost going into the processing chain, which means that all the processing, the compression, and the limiting is going to be much more extreme. It's going to get louder initially. You can see that registering on the Perception display here. It's showing an extra 3 dBs of gain. It makes sense because my compressor has a 2-to-1 ratio for those of you out there who know about this stuff. Now I can balance this version. And again, I can bypass. I think you can hear a larger difference there in the before and after. This is the before. This is the mastered after version. Now I can store that new setting in this new snapshot, and now I can switch seamlessly between the two. I can preview this song with more dynamics processing, more loudness processing going on, versus less processing, or any other thing I choose. So number 2 here is the hotter version. And this is the less heavily processed version. You can see the meter over here. This is an indication of the crest factor of the music, of how squashed it is. This is my preferred setting. It's got a wider setting. As I switch over to the other version, you can see that squashed down. And I don't know whether you can hear the music pumping, hear it kind of flinching, and it feels more restricted and more held back. This one sounds a bit more open, has a bit more life to it. And that is the goal of perception. I'm not telling anybody what they should do. I hope they choose the more dynamic version, like number 1 there, as opposed to number 2. And unfortunately, there's a lot of music that's much louder than number 2 out there in the charts at the moment. That's the current trend. But it enables you to see through the loudness deception and make an objective, informed comparison of the before and after processing of your music. And the last thing that I want to say just about how it works is that perception actually uses the R128 loudness standard. That's an internationally agreed standard. All the major broadcasters in Europe have adopted it. It's a legal requirement in the US. You actually can't get your stuff on TV unless it complies with this loudness standard. And it ensures that everything gets played back at a similar loudness, regardless of how squashed it is going in. So people pushing their masters through louder and louder and louder in an attempt to stand out from the rest simply aren't going to achieve that. iTunes Radio uses a similar system. Spotify uses a similar system. Pandora uses a similar system. And it's going to, I look forward to the day that YouTube uses a similar system. Loudness on the CD in the MP3 file becomes irrelevant. And everybody is able to choose what sounds best for their music, to find the loudness sweet spot. That's it. Thank you very much. I have one last slide, maybe, which just had the website for the plugin, if anybody's interested, perceptionplugin.com. You can go to productionadvice.co.uk. That's my site. If you want to find out more about the loudness war, loudness mixing and mastering in general. And if anybody here is interested, or if anybody watching is interested in trying Perception, we don't have a demo right now, but there is a full 60-day money-back guarantee. And for anybody watching this stream or here today, if you go to meterplugs.com/perception-music techfest, you can get $50 off the plugin. We're actually also running another promotion at the moment just because we got some great reviews, but that will end in a week. But we will keep the Music Tech Fest promotion open for a month. So anybody here who wants to try it can do so and is welcome to come and talk to me. I'm going to go down to the bar and get a drink. So feel free to pigeonhole me if you would like. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ian. Cheers.